I'm training to beat 6-year-old Chinese kids at Rubik's Cubes and documenting the whole process. If you're new here, every single week I make a training plan for exactly how I'm going to practice Rubik's Cubes optimally. I log literally everything I do in a spreadsheet like a total nerd, and then at the end of each week I go back over everything I did in a video like this and make a better plan for next week so I can improve faster and eventually beat the Chinese kids. My ultimate goal is to make the final round at a major cubing championship, which means US Nationals, Euros, or World Championships for everything from 3x3 to 7x7, sometime between now and 2031, which gives me about 5 years to pull this off. Today's November 30th, and the plan for this video is recap last week, and then give a roadmap going forward for my overall training. I've been at this for about 10 weeks now, very seriously, and I have a lot of new plans about what I'm going to learn and why, as well as what the channel is going to be like. My next competition is in 2 weeks, Temecula Valley Winter. I'm doing 3x3, 4x4, and 6x6. So, what did I train last week? Spent about 12 hours on 3x3 in total. Almost all of it went towards solves. It takes me on average an hour and 30, hour and 40 minutes to do this 100 solves right here because I'm inspecting for a long time. I spend forever looking at the cube, planning out my first moves, and trying to find my first F2L pair. I did a little bit of like PLL time attacks and training my inspection with focus, but almost everything I did was just raw solving the cube. And my times were pretty good this week. I got a couple of very strong sub 10 average of 50, average of 25s, and I got 2 average of 100s that were in the 10.2s, which is a solid 0.2 drop on my average of 100 from a couple of weeks ago. But I noticed that I stopped training explicit skills. Like I stopped training my turning to be as fast as humanly possible. And what that meant is I started to lose that skill. I was doing a ton of solving and not a lot of focused on turning training, which means that I was retaining my turning ability at the speed I do it in a solve, but not retaining it at my peak turning speed. Because in order to practice at my peak turning speed, I have to do some sort of drill where I get in the zone and I turn as fast as my fingers know how to do right now. So because I stopped doing as much focused training and just did lots of solves, I started to lose skill in how deep I could inspect into the solve and find pieces just from looking at the cube. On my ability to look ahead as I'm solving one thing, look like 10, 15 moves into the future, because I wasn't actively practicing any one thing, I was just solving. So I got a little bit better at the usable range of each of those skills, but the top end of those skills, where I'm really pushing myself, deteriorated on everything. So this is a big mistake, in my opinion, because I lost a lot of time that I could have been using to push the upper limit of my skill and instead just focused on improving the usable range of my skill. That's a necessary trade-off sometimes, like before you go into a competition. Need to keep training the top end of my skills so that I get better in my most able instead of just training what's usable in a solve. Another thing I noticed this week is there were a lot of hard cases that I improved a lot. I'll put a whole bunch of these on screen right here, but there were a lot of F2L cases where there was a flipped edge in the slot that I was struggling with last week and 2 weeks ago that now I learned optimal solutions for. I've learned a lot of workaround algorithms for cases where the edge is misoriented, which means I have to turn the front or the back or do a rotation to solve the case instead of just being able to do RU or LU moves. And there are a few algorithms where I've switched between 2 or 3 different finger tricks depending on the solve, and I picked one finger trick to do instead of constantly switching between 2 or 3 different things, which I didn't realize I was being inconsistent. Sometimes I would use my right hand to turn the cube, sometimes I would use my left hand, sometimes I was pinch with my thumb, sometimes I would pull with my index finger. And now for all my algorithms, I think I've solidified exactly what finger trick I'm going to use and how I'm going to regrip the cube to get into position to do that, which just makes a lot of the edge cases that will mess up solves smoother. I have to do more drilling to make them really instinctive, but I think most of the areas of my solve that I know I was struggling with or was ambiguous on optimal solutions for, I've kind of banged out and I'm doing better. Another thing that I've been working on a lot is using EO. EO is edge orientation. It's being able to tell if an edge can be solved just using RU or LD moves. Basically, if you have to rotate or turn the front back to solve an edge, it's not oriented. Turning the front back or rotating are bad, and the other moves are good. So oriented edges are the easiest ones to solve. And if I can tell which of my edges are oriented, I'm able to pick easy F2L pairs without having to find the location of both pieces. I can just check an edge, and if it's oriented, know that going for that F2L pair is probably a good thing. That makes my solves much smoother because I can choose the easiest pairs, and I can kind of like pre-rotate before I've seen all the information because I know an edge is misoriented. Another thing that it's useful for is influencing edges in my cross. So there are some solves where I can't see both the corner and edge in my first F2L pair, but I will choose a cross solution that orients an edge and watch for the corner as I do the cross solution. And that way I know all I have to do is get the corner into the top layer and solve the pair. Using EO also makes inspection a whole lot easier because instead of having to visually watch how an edge moves, I can just trace its position around the cube and then check its orientation. And if I do F or B moves to the edge as I solve it, then I know its orientation will flip. I'm going to do another video about this in more depth later, but this principle makes a lot of things about my solves way better in theory. The problem is it's a new variable in my brain that I have to keep track of. So now there are a lot of inspections or solves where what I used to do is look exactly at how pieces appear, which colors are on what parts of the cube, and now I look at a piece and go, is it oriented or not? Which is a different mental model for viewing the cube. And that means that even though it will be better for my inspection and prediction soon, right now it's frustrating because it's not instinctive yet. I get tripped up by it more often than not. The times it works, it's great. It's like, wow, this is the future. But a lot of times it doesn't. Okay, this is another thing that I've been learning a lot, is to expect really trash days in my practicing. So the way I thought cubing improvement would look is like this, where you kind of have good days and bad days, but over time, things kind of like trend in an upward direction. This is how most things in my life tend to look, where like I go to the gym or I work on business or some other personal activity where I'm trying to grow, and I have down days and I have up days, but overall, there's kind of a general upward trajectory. With cubing, what I've noticed is the delta between a bad day and a good day is really, really strong. So let's take working out. There might be one day in the gym where I'm like a little bit weaker and I can lift like 10 pounds less on a heavy lift in my experience so far, right? And then there might be a great day where I can do more. But this distance right here is not that big. That is an atrocious arrow. Excuse my drawing skills. But with cubing, if the average rate of improvement is like right here, the difference between a bad day right down here and a good day right here is massive. So I had days this week where my times would swing by a full second, like a 10% increase or decrease between days, just because I guess it was a bad day. Like that swing was really demoralizing. I had a day where I got my first 10.2 average of 100, and I was like, yes, huge improvement. The next day, I could barely get under 11 seconds. And at first, I felt really demotivated, like what in the world is happening and why? But then the more work I did, the more I was like, oh, good days and bad days just happen. It's just that bad days are really bad with cubing, and good days are really good. Ooh, yawn. So that's a mindset adjustment that I've been making. But when I realized that, oops, wrong button, it made my solving and mentality about doing well a whole lot smoother. So now if I'm having a bad day, it's fine. Just keep doing the motions and the next day things will probably get better. Another thing that I've been thinking about this last week is the need to overcome habits in bursts of effort. So habits are shortcuts your brain falls back on when it's too tired to do the full work of thinking through a problem on its own. If my goal is to solve for as long as possible, like to do 200 solves in a row, you have to have habits because your brain can't actively compute everything that happens across 200 solves. But if my goal is to solve like one cube as fast as humanly possible, if I have any habits that are detrimental and actively using my brain to do something correctly would be better, I have to override the habit and make a good decision. So a bad habit of mine is only planning cross and then jumping straight into the solve. The habit I'm trying to form is grasping what I'm going to do for my first 4 pieces and then looking at all the F2L edges, finding oriented ones, and tracking pairs from there. But that takes a lot of effort because my brain's fallback when it gets tired is, just find the cross and start the solve. Overriding that mental habit takes a lot of effort, and forming a new habit takes a lot of effort as well. So when I'm doing a really long session of like 100 solves in a row, somewhere around 40 or 50 solves into the session, I notice that I don't have enough mental energy to overcome strong bad habits. If my goal of training is to get good at solving for a really long time in a row, then that's one thing, but that's not my goal. My goal is to form new habits so that in a few solves, I can be as good as I possibly can. So when I feel my endurance shrinking to the point where I can't fight bad habits, I'm learning that I have to take breaks, split my sessions up into 2 or 3 chunks throughout the day, which I'll talk about later, switch events, do something. I need to ride the waves of my brain instead of just muscling through. Up until this week, my mentality has been, if my brain is getting tired, just keep going. Just keep pushing, just keep solving, like you're a marathon runner. But that doesn't work if you're trying to overcome bad habits and create new ones. In order to create new habits, every time I pick up the cube, I have to be at 100% mental capacity and use all of it to do things the correct new way, instead of allowing my brain to default back to its old mental shortcuts. So this is something I've been doing poorly and I'm gonna work on, and I'll explain more of how in a little bit. This is one of the ways, though, is switching to 2-a-days, which means practicing twice a day instead of just once a day. So if I want to be a world-class cuber, which I do, I have to at minimum match like Yiheng's amount of solving input. And I believe from the amount of work that Yiheng talks about doing and like what I can find on the internet, he practices for somewhere around 4 hours a day. And I can't focus for 4 hours straight. I do not have the mental ability to just cube for 4 hours with perfect mental acuity and override bad habits the whole time. At this time, though, I can focus for approximately 2 to 2.5 hours at a time, maybe 3 if I'm able to taper off at the end of the session. So I just need to do 2 sessions that are about 2.5 hours every single day. And there's a bunch of benefits to that, but the main ones are I'm doing more work, which obviously 5 hours of cubing-ish a day is a lot of practicing. But the other thing is that by splitting my practice up from one big session into 2 smaller sessions, I can be completely mentally tuned in during both instead of one long one where my brain tapers off at the end and I start to waste practice time. Yikes, big yawn. So this I'm doing so that I can override bad habits and just practice more. I was talking to Chris Mills this week, and he was like, are you really trying to get to like a world-class level at cubing? And I was like, yeah, I am. And I was like, why would he doubt that? Well, one is I haven't been in this for very long. I've only been at this for a few weeks, don't have great results yet. 2, no one's done this before. And 3, it's really hard to get to a top level of cubing. I've found that my like roughly 3 hours of practice a day has been pretty sustainable so far. So I might as well just double it and do it twice a day and see if I can keep up with that. On big cubes real quick before I jump into what I'm doing next week, I'm still in maintenance mode. I got a nice 2-minute average of 12 on 6x6 this week, but I still have not gotten a sub 2 mean at all since I started cubing again like 12 weeks ago, which is ridiculous to me. And 7x7 is not too bad as well. I'm starting some big cube coaching with Mark Zimmerman. He's pretty fast at big cubes. I recorded solves from 5x5 through 7x7 and sent them to him, and he's giving me written critique on what I can do better. So I will update you all once I get my first coaching back from him, but I'm pretty sure that my focus will start to split a little bit more between 3x3 and big cubes as we go. So what is the roadmap going forward? I kind of have new goals in mind for both this YouTube channel and me as a cuber. And there's a few things here. I do want to get to a world-class level at everything from 3x3 through 7x7, but 3x3 is the hardest of that bunch to do this with. In order to be world-class at 3x3, there are a few skills that I'm noticing the best cubers kind of wish they had. One is inspection complexity, which means seeing really difficult X-crosses or seeing solutions that are not very intuitive. The second one is inspection depth, so seeing 2, 3, 4 pairs deep into inspection. Dylan Miller said that this is his biggest weakness. In theory, if he had to practice in such a way to be optimal in 2 years from now, he said he would just lock himself in a time chamber and work on inspecting deeper into the solve. Another one is F2L multi-slotting, which means not just picking a good solution for one F2L pair, but being able to intake all the pieces on the cube and choose solutions that set yourself up for easy solutions later in the solve. And then the last one is probably knowing full ZB, or some equivalent massive algorithm set. The ideal cuber could see all the way, could one look their solve using not just really intuitive solutions, but really complex ones in such a way that everything they do is straightforward and easy to finger trick and hyper efficient with the algorithms they use. I don't think I'll be able to do all of these, but at a minimum, I think I'll be able to stand out by learning full ZB, as well as becoming really, really good at finding complex solutions in inspection, bringing a block building skill to normal 3x3 solving. So inspection complexity, I've had a lot of people talk about how, like Luke Greiser and Dylan Miller and Chris Mills, I've noticed, have all said, I could do double X cross trainers and find all these really complicated solutions, but I just don't notice a lot of the setup moves. And a couple people have mentioned to me, hey, what if you used like trainers for block building methods like Petrus or FMC and developed that skill? So I'm pretty sure that at some point in the future, that's in the cards for me, is becoming really, really good at block building and things that are normally used in RU or Petrus or FMC, and then applying that skill of visualizing solutions back to CFOP so that I can find really advanced X crosses. I don't see very many cubers at all at a top level solving like that. So that might be a way to stand out. I'll probably experiment in a few months here with that. The second is inspection depth. So I don't think I'll ever be Shanye, where he can inspect 3 to 4 pairs deep really consistently, or 2 to 3 pairs deep if he's using more complex solutions, because his brain has been able to develop and literally like morph in order for him to be better at that skill. But I do think that I'll be able to consistently plan 2 or 3 pairs with basic solutions eventually. Right now, I can very consistently plan 1 if I give myself about 30 seconds. And a few weeks ago, I could not consistently plan my whole cross 10 weeks ago. So that's really good progress. I would imagine that with another year of focused effort on planning my inspection, I'll be able to consistently plan 2 pairs every solve, which is the absolute minimum that top solvers need to do. So seeing complex solutions and then seeing multiple pairs deep into a solve are prerequisite skills to being a fast cuber. Multi-slotting, I won't talk too much about this because I'll make other videos on it, but just picking solutions that affect the whole cube is important. But the last one is I want to learn full ZB. I don't know when this starts yet. All I know is I start with COLL, and then I have to learn more algorithms after that. But I for sure want to learn full ZB. I wasn't sure about this previously, but the more I've thought about it, the more I do not think I will ever be a cuber who solves based on turning at blazing speeds, especially because I want to do this as I get older. I can't rely on simple, fast solutions because there are too many other cubers who will be better at that than me. But if I do choose to rely on complex solutions with a high algorithm count, I bet I could do that better than most other cubers. So I'm not going to start on full ZB at a minimum until I'm like mid-9 globally. And Luke Greiser has told me start with COLL, learn how to recognize the corners on all of these, and then we'll go into sets from there. I don't know exactly when I'm going to do this. I don't know what algorithms come next, but I for sure want to learn full ZB starting at some point in the next few months. So that's kind of my roadmap, is I want to get to a top level, and I'm willing to do pretty much whatever it takes to get to that point. As far as this channel goes, I'm planning on uploading 3 times a week from now on. I'm going to keep doing these training updates until I quit cubing every single week. And now I have the Cubers podcast that I'm making. So I uploaded an interview with Dylan Miller this last week. I've got Gianfranco Huanqui coming on this next week. I had a really good conversation with him, former 3 blind world record holder, for those of you who don't know who that is. And I've got several other interviews lined up. And if anyone listening to this or watching this is a semi-high level speed cuber, you compete at a high level in some event, I would love to talk to you. Shoot me a message on Discord, shoot me an email. We'll set up a time to record a podcast, but just have a conversation about cubing, about you as a person. My goal with the podcast is to tell the stories of lots of different cubers and people in the cubing community. I think that there are a lot of podcasts about the art of the cube, but not very many about the people who contribute to that thing. So that's the goal with that podcast. I've had a lot of fun with the few episodes I've recorded so far and will not stop anytime soon. I also am going to start putting out dedicated educational content. A ton of people have asked me, hey, how do you recommend learning cross plus one? How do you talk about look ahead? How do you XYZ ABC, right? A whole bunch of things. And I think I'll bring an interesting angle to these because most people on YouTube, like JPerm or CubeHead or any other educational creator, mostly make tutorials that are purely tactical. Here is how you do X, here is how you do Y. But I think I'll be able to make videos that blend high-level explanation of things along with specific tactical examples. So every week, I'm also going to start uploading content that is purely educational, not about what I'm doing, not about other cubers, but just how to get better at cubing. And if people find it useful, that's cool. And if you think I'm not qualified, that's fine too. Eventually, I have this dream to start a community of people who are all really dedicated to training and improving at cubing. There's a lot of people on the internet who want to get faster at cubing, but are not really serious about it. You know, hi, I'm 9 years old and I have the GAN XS V17. I average 23 seconds. I started cubing 8 weeks ago BTW. Like, what should I do to improve? Like, there's a bunch of those people. And those people are great. I was one of them for many years. But what I want now is a tight-knit group of people who are all posting solve videos and asking for critiques on those solves and discussing theories of how to get better. And this can be people anywhere from like, you know, a 45, 30-second level all the way down to like an 8, 7, 6, 5-second level on 3x3. And same goes for big cubes. But I'm hoping that as I gain traction with these videos to start some sort of private community of those sort of people where we can all help coach each other and build each other up. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish both as a cuber and with this YouTube channel. It's really cool to see kind of the early stage traction I've already gotten, and that's where I want to go from here. So back to my training plan. Here's what I'm going to be doing next week for cubing. First big thing, and I did not put a slide in for this, I just realized, I'm going to be gone for most of the week, from Tuesday to Friday, which is most of it. My wife and I are going on a little mini vacation. We're going to a bunch of amusement parks, Disneyland and SeaWorld and Knott's Berry Farm and stuff. I love roller coasters. I've been on 198 of them in 7 different countries, and I keep track of all of them in a big spreadsheet. So yeah, that's kind of one of my other nerdy things I like to do. But I'm not going to bring a Rubik's Cube at all on that trip. So I'm going to have 4 whole days off from cubing, which I'm excited about because my brain is starting to get very tired. And Luke Greiser and I talked about it, and I think having a complete reset for like 4 days will be so good for me. When I get back, I think I'll be much more ready to attack the hard skills and prepare for my next competition that I need to for cubing. So that's one big thing. I won't have a ton of practice sessions this next week. Things going forward. First, for the next 2 weeks, I have to always time my inspection. Up until now, my goal has been to improve my depth of inspection, to inspect as far into the solve as my brain would let me, to always get all the way to cross plus 1. The problem is, that's been taking me 30 to 45 seconds of inspection. I can do it, but it takes a while. And I have a competition coming up. I can't do that in competition. So now I have to train my inspection speed, not my inspection depth. Those are 2 different skills. Accurately predicting far into a solve is one thing, and quickly making snap judgments about what looks good and solving it well is a whole different thing. Sean Yi actually, there's Anton Canton put a video out about this, where, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, my French wife is probably cringing over there right now. He put out a video about this, how Sean Yi would train inspection in 2 different ways. One way where he's trying to inspect as far into the solve as possible, and the other way where he's trying to quickly inspect the first 2 pairs. And so I need to switch from inspecting deep to inspecting fast. And always make sure I'm within the 15-second time limit. Just for the next couple weeks. After this next competition, I'm going to go back to training depth because that's what will help me get better long term. But the time is now so that I can perform a competition. Next thing is for my 2-look F2L drill, which is where I pick up the cube, I solve 2 pairs with my eyes closed, and then I inspect again and solve the last 2 pairs with my eyes closed. Until now, I've been setting my first pair up to a 3-mover, either a free pair or a 3-move insert, because I couldn't quite track the first 2 pairs well enough. Now I'm at nearly 100% success rate doing it without a 3-mover, which is awesome progress. So I'm still going to be working on this next week. Next is, I've never really liked slow solves, but I'm going to start doing 50 of them a day. I'm at the point now where look ahead is probably my biggest weakness. Like I mentioned, earlier, I've optimized a whole bunch of my specific F2L solutions. Now I need to work on doing them smoothly, being able to do one and process the rest of the information on the cube as I'm executing one solution. I need to drill in what I know instead of just learning new stuff. So about 12 weeks ago, I wasn't a huge fan of slow solves. I felt like they were silly and wouldn't help me very much. But now I'm curious. I'm going to approach it with an open mind and give it at least a month of doing slow solves every day and see if it helps me or not. Another thing Luke mentioned to me was I can do gradual ramp ups, which is like I'm going to start solving at 50% of my speed. And every 10 solves add on like a tiny bit of speed. And he said that's his favorite way to warm up for a competition. And it makes good sense to me. So I'm definitely going to try that at my next comp. This is another thing that I need to do. So Michael Phelps has this thing that his coach would tell him, and his coach would tell him, play the tape. Michael Phelps had a mental visualization of what a perfect race would look like. His coach said, imagine the exact perfect race. Imagine yourself on the starting block. Imagine the jump into the water. Imagine every stroke your arms make. Count how many there'll be. Feel the motions in your head. Imagine when you're going to touch the back wall and swim back this way. Feel every single stroke. Visualize popping out of the water at the end and taking your goggles off and seeing the time. And so literally every day, Michael Phelps would visualize himself swimming a perfect race. And before every competition meet, his coach would yell, hey, play the tape. Imagine in your head what the perfect race will look like. And so an interesting story about Michael Phelps is that one of his first world records that he swam, as soon as he jumped into the water, his goggles, the seal cracked and they flooded with water and he couldn't see anything. But because he had this perfect visualization of it in his head of it's going to be this many strokes to the other side of the pool, then I'm going to flip and kick off the wall, and this many strokes to the other end, he didn't even need to see because he had such a perfect mental image of his race. And he broke a world record on that race where he was swimming blind because of his mental visualization. And so something Luke asked me to do is find a solve that's going to be your visualization. Find something that you can hold in your head and go, this is what I want my solves to be like. For me, that needs to be around a 9-second solve. So I want to find a video, like a literal video of somebody doing a clean 9-second solve somewhere on the internet and make that my mental goal for right now. That visualization will change every few months as I get faster, but I need that right now. So if you have a recommendation for like a 9-second solve that's really smooth, that should be my visualization, drop a link in the description or let me know of a good solve or average and I'll go look at them and maybe one of those will become my visualization that I'll use from now on. That's pretty much everything for this week. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, etc., please drop them down below. I've got my email, my Discord in the description and my channel. I love hearing from everybody who watches the videos. It's really encouraging. Now, for me, it's back to work, and I'm going to keep doing all the hard work, especially when I don't feel like it.